Most people assume rats originate from sewers and trash cans, but they are only half right. The other half of the problem is likely sitting 20 feet from your kitchen window, growing in soil you tilled yourself, watered with your own hose, and probably paid good money for at a garden center last spring. After 67 years on a hillside and over 2 decades teaching horticulture at the university level, I can tell you that the rat problem in your backyard did not start at the dumpster. It started in your garden bed. Norway rats and roof rats do not follow garbage. They follow calories, shelter, and water in that specific order. If you have been planting according to what the catalogs suggest, there is a fair chance you have been running an all-you-can-eat buffet with a free hotel attached. I am going to walk you through 11 common American garden plants that quietly turn a backyard into a rat habitat. Some of these will surprise you. One of them is found on almost every suburban property in this country. The worst offender on this list is not a fruit tree, a vegetable patch, or even something most people think of as food. It is a wall of green that most American suburbs planted on purpose, and it has its own nickname in pest control circles: the Rat Hotel. Before we get there, we start with one I bet you have in your own yard this season. Before we start the list, do me one favor. Drop your USDA zone and your closest city in the comments. Rats behave differently in Zone 4 Vermont than they do in Zone 9 Florida. And the plants on this list do not all grow everywhere. If I know where you are gardening, I can point you toward better answers in future videos. Tap subscribe if you would rather hear this from an experienced orchardist than from someone reading off a label, and let's get to the list. 3 things attract rats to a property: food, water, and shelter. Take any one of those away, and the colony moves on. Provide all 3 in close range, and they stay, breed, and bring family. A female Norway rat can produce 6 to 12 litters a year, and each litter runs 6 to 12 pups. The math gets ugly fast. Now, most of what I am about to show you is not bad in itself. Some of these plants have grown in American gardens for 200 years for good reason. The problem is how we plant them, how we maintain them, and what we ignore underneath them. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which combinations to break up, what to clean up before October, and which one species you might want to dig out entirely if you have already got a rat problem and cannot figure out where they are nesting. The most common annual flower in American backyards, and one of the most reliable rat magnets on the continent, is the sunflower, Helianthus annuus, which grows in zones 2 through 11 as an annual in full sun with moderate water. There is nothing prettier than a row of mammoth sunflowers leaning over a vegetable garden in August, but there is also nothing more attractive to a rat. Sunflowers produce between 500 and 1,200 seeds per head, depending on the cultivar. Those seeds are roughly 26% fat by weight. That fat content is what makes them caloric gold for a rodent fattening up for winter. The problem is not the standing flower. The problem is what happens after the head ripens. Most home gardeners let sunflower heads dry on the stalk for harvest, causing the heads to tip over and seeds to rain onto the soil for weeks. Birds eat some, and rats eat the rest. According to established IPM programs, sunflower seed on the ground is one of the top 3 identified food sources for established Norway rat colonies in residential areas. The same pattern shows up in extension data from New York. Here is what I tell folks: if you grow sunflowers, harvest the heads the day the back turns yellow-brown and the bracts curl. Do not wait for them to fall. Cut the head off with a foot of stalk attached. Hang it in a dry barn or porch, upside down inside a paper bag for 2 weeks. Then thresh the seeds out over a tarp. Sweep the area under where the sunflowers stood. Do not leave dropped seed lying around through October. Also, do not plant sunflowers along the foundation of the house. Keep them 20 feet minimum from any wall a rat could climb. If you have a bird feeder full of black oil sunflower seed next to a sunflower row, next to a wood pile, you have built rat heaven. Pull one of those three elements out, and the equation changes. One more thing on sunflowers. The shorter dwarf varieties, like music box, sunspot, or teddy bear, drop fewer seeds per head and do not tip over the way the 8-foot Russian mammoth does. If you garden in a tight suburban lot and you want sunflowers without the rat invitation, dwarf cultivars cut your risk by roughly 70%. That is not a number from a catalog. That is a number from a decade of watching what falls on the ground in my own kitchen garden. Sweet corn, Zea maize, is an annual in all zones requiring full sun and high water. I will be straight with you. I love sweet corn. I grew Stowell's, Evergreen, and Country Gentleman for 25 years on this same patch of ground. It used to be said that August did not start until the first ear hit the kitchen pot. But here is the truth most folks won't tell you. Sweet corn is rat candy. Each ear holds between 400 and 800 kernels at roughly 4% fat and 73% carbohydrate. Norway rats are wired to find that carbohydrate concentration. Worse, the rats do not wait for the ear to fall. They climb the stalk, gnaw the husk open while the ear is still hanging, and feed on the ripening kernel. You walk out one morning and 3 out of every 5 ears in the row have a clean half-moon chewed out the side. My opinion, plain as I can make it. If you have an active rat problem and you also have a sweet corn patch within 50 feet of the house, you are not getting rid of either one until you change your layout. The catalog people will tell you sweet corn grows great in a small suburban plot. What they won't tell you is that a small suburban plot puts that food source about 30 feet from your house siding, where rats want to nest. Move it. Put sweet corn at the far corner of the yard. Harvest religiously the day silks turn brown, and pull every stalk and root within 48 hours of the last ear coming off. Burn the stalks, compost them hot, or haul them off. Do not let a sweet corn stalk lie in the row through November. That stalk and that missed ear are dinner for 40 rats. Extension offices documented in 2019 that mature corn patches within 75 feet of structures showed 3 times the rodent activity of patches sited at the back of the property. Geography matters. The fig tree, Ficus carica, grows in USDA zones 7 through 10 in full sun with moderate water. Garden catalogs will tell you a fig tree is the easiest fruit tree an American homeowner can grow. They will show you a happy family picking purple-brown turkey figs in September. What they won't show you is the rest of the fruit. A mature fig tree produces between 40 and 100 pounds of fruit per season. A homeowner picks maybe a quarter of that on a good year. The rest ripens, falls, splits open on the ground, and ferments. That fermenting fig is roughly 16% sugar by weight, soft enough for a rat to eat without effort, and aromatic enough to draw rodents from 200 feet away. The catalog people do not lie about figs being easy. They lie about what easy actually means. A fig tree is easy to plant, but it is enormously high maintenance to harvest cleanly. Here is what I tell folks. If you keep a fig, you commit to picking the tree every 2 to 3 days during the ripening window. Anything you cannot reach with a pole picker is going to fall, and anything that falls is rodent food within 12 hours. Rake under the canopy 3 times a week through September and October. Do not compost dropped figs near the house. Bury them in a trench at the back of the property or run them through a hot compost above 140 degrees. University extensions found that fig trees in residential yards were associated with higher rat trap counts in adjacent properties, particularly when figs were unmaintained. If your fig has been on the property longer than 5 years and you have never had it heavily pruned, you have an interior canopy where roof rats are nesting. Get it opened up. Black walnut, juglans, grows in USDA zones 4 through 9 in full sun with low to moderate water. Rows of these were planted on this farm as far back as 1894, and they are still being harvested today. We have 3 black walnuts on the home parcel. One of them is in its 130th year, and it still drops walnuts every other autumn, like it has something to prove. I love these trees, but I am not going to pretend they are rat-free. A mature black walnut drops between 300 and 1,000 nuts per crop year. Each nut is roughly 15% protein and 65% fat. That is the highest concentration of pure calories on this entire list. A rat that finds a walnut harvest has won the lottery. Now, black walnut shells are thick. A house mouse cannot crack one, but a Norway rat or a roof rat can, and they cache the nuts in burrow systems 30 to 50 feet from the source. Squirrels do most of the harvest work, drop husks and partial nuts on the ground, and rats clean up what the squirrels miss. The chain runs through every property line within 100 feet of the tree. Here is the discipline. Rake the husks the same week they fall. Do not wait for the second drop. Bag the husks in heavy contractor bags, label them, and let them rot down for 2 years before composting. The juglone in the husk kills most garden vegetables and stunts tomatoes for years if you spread it fresh. Crack and freeze the nuts you want to keep within 30 days of harvest. Do not store unshelled walnuts in a garden shed or open garage. Every shed I have ever inventoried with stored walnuts also had a rodent nest in the wall cavity by February. A black walnut is the kind of tree that punishes a careless homeowner for 2 generations. Pampas grass, Cortaderia celoana, grows in USDA zones 7 through 11 in full sun with low water. Here is one I have a strong opinion about. Pampas grass became a landscape darling in American suburbs in the 1970s, mostly because it was sold as drought-tolerant, low-maintenance, and architecturally dramatic. All 3 of those claims are technically true. What the nurseries forgot to mention is that a mature clump of pampas grass is functionally a rat condominium. The base of the plant builds up dense, dry, undisturbed thatch year after year. The blades are razor-sharp on the edge, which means homeowners almost never reach in to clean it out. Inside that thatch, the temperature stays 15 to 20 degrees warmer than ambient through winter. The humidity stays moderate, and no predator can get in. Norway rats nest there, roof rats nest there, and voles nest there. The pampas grass itself does not offer much food. There are seeds, but the rats are mostly there for the housing. They forage somewhere else and come home to that fortress. IPM programs specifically list ornamental clumping grasses as a top-tier nesting habitat. Here is what I tell folks who already have pampas grass on the property. Cut it back hard every February before nesting season starts. I mean down to 4 inches above the crown. Wear leather gauntlets and a face shield because those blades cut. Rake out every scrap of dry thatch and burn it or bag it. Do not compost it on site because the seeds are viable for years and the species is invasive in many states. If you do not want to do that work every February, dig the clump out, fill the hole, and plant something that does not host a rodent colony. There are native ornamental grasses like little bluestem, switchgrass, or prairie drop seed that give you the architectural look without the rat condo underneath. If this list is making you look around your yard a little differently, hit that thumbs up. It tells the algorithm to send this video to other gardeners who need the warning. I will admit something. The first 10 years I gardened on this property, I did not think about rats at all. I lost an entire winter squash patch in 1978 before I figured out what was happening. So, if you are catching this before you have had the problem, you are already ahead of where I was. The apple tree, Malus domestica, grows in USDA zones 3 through 9 in full sun with moderate water. I want to be careful here because I am an orchardist by trade. And the last thing I am going to do is tell you not to grow apples. Every American homestead should have at least one good apple tree. But here is the part that catalog people skip. A standard apple tree drops between 300 and 1,000 pounds of fruit a season. A semi-dwarf drops between 100 and 300. Even a heavily managed home orchard sees 20% to 30% of its fruit hit the ground. That dropped fruit is what we call drops in the trade, and drops are calorie-dense, water-rich, and soft. A rat takes one apple in one sitting and gets close to a third of its daily caloric requirement. Every glossy catalog will tell you to plant a dwarf apple in your suburban yard for fresh fruit. What they won't tell you is that drops are not optional, and that drops attract rats, yellow jackets, and raccoons in that order. So, here is the rule. If you keep an apple tree, you commit to picking up drops every 48 hours from late August through the first hard frost. I use a fruit picker upper roller. It costs $30 and picks up apples like a lint roller picks up cat hair. Bag the drops, haul them off, feed them to chickens or pigs if you have them, or run them through a hot compost. Do not leave them on the ground or let them rot in the grass. And do not mow over them and call it composting, because the mower just turns them into a rat smoothie and spreads the scent. The other piece of advice: keep the orchard floor short, 6 inches or less, through harvest season. Rats won't cross open ground in daylight, so a clean orchard floor cuts their access. I learned that from an extension bulletin in 1983, and it has worked every year since. One more piece on the apple. Avoid planting an apple tree within 30 feet of any outbuilding, like a shed, barn, or detached garage. That distance gives you room to manage drops without the rats having a built-in nesting structure 10 feet from the food source. And if you have already got an old apple tree close to a shed, your single highest return investment is sealing that shed at the sill plate. A pound of steel wool and a tube of caulk costs less than a single trap call from a professional. White mulberry, Morus alba, grows in USDA zones 4 through 8 in full sun with moderate water. A white mulberry was once planted on the south edge of a kitchen garden here in 1968. It was a beloved tree used for making jam every June for 41 years. I am going to tell you something true about that tree, and then I am going to tell you something else. A mature mulberry produces between 50 and 200 pounds of fruit in a 4-week window. That fruit is the size of a fingernail, soft, sweet, and falls of its own weight when ripe. There is no way to harvest a mulberry tree cleanly. Even with a tarp on the ground, you lose 40%. The rest stains the soil, ferments, and feeds every rodent within a quarter mile. My opinion on the mulberry is harder to give than my opinion on most other things. I would not plant a mulberry today on a property I cared about, keeping rodent-free. The fruit production exceeds anything a household can manage. The bird population that comes for the berries then defecates seeds across the property line, which is why white mulberry is now considered invasive in 28 states. But I would also not take an old, sentimental mulberry down. There are some things that matter more than a clean orchard floor. If you have a mulberry already, the discipline is the tarp. Spread a heavy canvas tarp the full diameter of the canopy every morning during the 4-week drop. Shake the tree gently, sweep the fallen berries into buckets, and process them the same day. The ones you cannot process, and there will be many, feed to chickens or freeze. Do not leave a single fruit on the ground overnight if you can help it. And if you are considering planting one, consider planting a sterile male cultivar, like Morus alba chaparral or urban. That does not produce fruit at all. Same shade, none of the rat invitation. Winter squash and pumpkin, Cucurbita maxima and related species, are annuals in all American zones in full sun with high water. This one bothers me because every Halloween and Thanksgiving, every farm stand pushes pumpkins as the wholesome American garden harvest. They are wholesome, but they are also one of the highest calorie targets on the autumn property. A mature Hubbard squash weighs between 15 and 40 pounds and packs roughly 450 calories per pound. The seed cavity alone contains between 200 and 500 seeds at 35% fat. A single squash left in the field through November feeds a Norway rat for 2 months. Now, here is what nobody tells you about pumpkin patches. They get harvested late. Most home gardens leave pumpkins on the vine until the first frost, sometimes longer. The vines die back, the leaves brown, and you have 50-pound caloric targets sitting on bare ground with nobody watching. Squirrels chew through them, raccoons rip them open, and rats finish the job. The hole in a chewed pumpkin is a rat shelter inside a rat food source. They hollow out the cavity and nest in it through the first cold week. Let me say it plain. If you grow winter squash, harvest every fruit by the 2nd week of October in northern zones, and sooner in colder climates. Cure them in a warm shed at 80 degrees for 10 days, then store at 50 to 55 degrees in a cool basement or root cellar. Do not leave squash in the field past the first frost. And under no circumstances should you leave broken or rotting pumpkins outside as Halloween decoration through November. That jack-o'-lantern on the front porch is a rat motel by November 15th. Compost it the day after Halloween. Hot compost buried, not left in a heap. English ivy, Hedera helix, grows in USDA zones 4 through 9 in part shade with low water. Here is one that has been quietly turning American foundations into rat habitat for 40 years, and almost nobody talks about it. English ivy was sold by every nursery in the country from the 1960s forward as the perfect ground cover for shady spots and the perfect climbing vine for stone walls. It does both jobs. It also does a third job nobody advertised. A mature stand of English ivy 3 feet deep creates a continuous insulated tunnel system from one end of a property to the other. The leaf canopy stays dense year-round in mild climates. The understory soil stays warm, dark, and humid. Rats use ivy as a highway. They run from the woodpile through the ivy, along the foundation, into the gap between the siding and the sill plate, and into your wall cavity. Every pest control technician I have spoken to in 30 years agrees that ivy on the foundation is one of the top 3 structural risk factors for residential rodent intrusion. Every garden catalog still sells ivy as a foundation planting. The plant does not read the label. The catalog people might tell you English ivy is an elegant landscape solution, but the rats inside your wall would disagree if they had opinions. Here is the reality. If English ivy is touching your foundation, the rats already know. Cut it back 2 feet from any structure at minimum, 3 feet if you can. Strip it off the siding entirely. Do not grow ivy up the side of a house under any circumstance. If you have a large bed of it on the property, accept that the ground underneath is a rodent corridor and treat the perimeter accordingly. There are better native ground covers for shade, like wild ginger, foam flower, or golden ragwort, that do not host the same tunnel system underneath. One more note on ivy that almost nobody mentions. The flowers of mature English ivy bloom in late September and October, and the small black berries that follow ripen in late winter. Those berries are mildly toxic to humans, but perfectly digestible for rodents and starlings. The berries are a late winter food source at exactly the moment most rat colonies are looking for any calorie they can find before spring breeding. So, you are not just providing the tunnel system. You are providing winter feed, too. Cut the ivy off any wall or fence taller than you can reach, and do not let it flower if you can help it. The avocado tree, Persea americana, grows in USDA zones 9 through 11 in full sun, with moderate water. I have taught enough students from California, Florida, Texas, and Arizona over the years to know exactly what these trees do to a suburban property. And I am going to give you the unvarnished version. A mature avocado tree produces between 200 and 500 fruits per season. Each fruit weighs roughly half a pound. That is 100 to 250 pounds of high-fat, high-calorie food dropping into a suburban yard between January and September, depending on the cultivar. Avocado is roughly 15% fat by weight. That is twice the fat content of an apple and 4 times the fat content of a strawberry. Roof rats, specifically, are the species that exploded across Southern California and Florida suburbs in the last 40 years, and their primary suburban food source is the residential avocado tree. Here is my opinion. Plain. Avocado is the perfect example of zone creep. People plant it the moment they move into a zone that supports it. They do not understand what they are committing to in terms of harvest discipline. And within 5 years, the property has a rat population that was not there before. If you keep an avocado, the rule is the same as the apple, but harder. Pick every fruit within 3 days of the soft ripe stage. Use a pole picker. Do not let fallen fruit sit on the ground past 24 hours. Pick up drops every single morning during the harvest window. Net the tree if your cultivar drops heavily. That is a $50 investment that pays for itself the first season. And if you have inherited a mature avocado on a small lot, and you are not going to commit to that level of maintenance, the most honest thing I can tell you is to consider taking it down. A neighbor's avocado is also your rat problem. Talk to them. Coordinate harvest. Do not let the fruit rot. Golden bamboo, Philostachys aurea, grows in USDA zones 6 through 10 in full sun with moderate water. In all my years of turning soil, there is exactly one ornamental plant I would recommend never planting on an American property under any circumstance. That plant is running bamboo. Now, the marketing arm of the bamboo nursery industry has spent 40 years trying to convince American homeowners bamboo is the perfect privacy screen. It is fast, it is evergreen, it is exotic, and it blocks the neighbors. All true. What they do not tell you, what they categorically refuse to put in the brochure, is that a mature stand of running bamboo is the single most efficient rat habitat that has ever been deliberately planted in the suburbs of this country. There is a reason pest control operators call it the Rat Hotel. Let me walk you through why. First, the canopy. Bamboo grows 15 to 30 feet tall in dense clumps, and the canopy is closed year-round in zones above 6. That canopy blocks aerial predators like hawks and owls, the only natural rat controls left in most suburbs. Second, the understory. Bamboo drops a thick mat of leaf litter that compounds year over year and never breaks down. That mat holds heat through winter. Third, the culms themselves. Each bamboo stem is hollow and divided into sealed chambers by internal nodes. Rats chew through the lower nodes and nest inside the standing column. They use the bamboo as a vertical apartment building. Fourth, the rhizomes. Running bamboo spreads underground through fast-growing rhizomes that displace soil and create extensive tunnel networks. Rats use those rhizome tunnels as pre-made highways. They do not even have to dig. Fifth, the seeds. Most ornamental bamboo does not flower for decades, but when it does, the seed mast feeds rodents at a biblical scale. Historical reports document rat population explosions following mass bamboo flowering events. Running bamboo is listed in the highest nesting habitat categories by Extension Services. The plant is also legally restricted or banned in 14 American municipalities because of the rodent issue and because the rhizomes destroy adjacent properties. My opinion, said Plain, if you have running bamboo on your property, and you have also got a rat problem, the bamboo is almost certainly involved. Get a quote from a professional bamboo removal crew. Do not try to dig it out yourself. The rhizomes go down 2 to 3 feet and travel 10 to 15 feet horizontally, and they will regrow from a single inch of root left behind. It is a multi-$1,000 removal job on a mature stand. It is also the single highest return rat mitigation decision a homeowner can make. If you want privacy, plant Eastern arborvitae in a tight row, an American native that provides a dense screen with no rat hotel underneath. The catalog people aren't going to like this, but the rats hate it more. One last technical note. Clumping bamboo, the genus Bambusa or Fargesia, is fundamentally different from running bamboo. The clumpers do not send out aggressive rhizomes. They stay where you plant them and do not build the same continuous understory tunnel system. Just confirm with a nursery that is willing to give you the Latin name in writing, because half the bamboo sold at big box stores is mislabeled. That is the 11. Sunflower, sweet corn, fig, black walnut, pampas grass, apple, mulberry, winter squash, English ivy, avocado, and golden bamboo. 11 common American garden plants, 400 million American backyards, and exactly the same 3 principles every time: food, shelter, water. Pick one away and the colony moves on. Provide all 3 and they stay. The difference between a tended garden and a fed colony shows up at 3 in the morning under the back porch. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. The catalog is not writing for your property. It is writing for an idealized fantasy garden that does not include the rats, the raccoons, the dropped fruit, or the wall cavity above your kitchen ceiling. You have to think about all of it. 3 resources for you if you want to read the research yourself. The UCANR Integrated Pest Management Program, the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Fact Sheets, and the CDC Healthy Housing Reference Manual. All 3 are free, and none of them are selling you bamboo. If this video helped you see your yard a little differently, share it with the neighbor whose ivy is climbing your shared fence. They need to see it too. Subscribe for more from a hillside that has been tended since 1894. Next week, we look at 12 perennials that quietly support pollinators through frost. Until then, clean up your drops, cut back your ivy, and for the love of every garden that came before yours, do not plant the bamboo. If this story changed the way you look at the plants in your backyard, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the history and the environmental truths that some would rather keep buried. Let's cultivate a better future together. The next treasure trove of knowledge will be opened soon.